Advances in weapons technology have meant that the rules of war have also had to adapt. Because some weapons and methods of warfare don't distinguish between fighters and civilians, limits on their use have been agreed. In the future, wars may be fought with fully autonomous robots. But will such robots ever have the ability to distinguish between a military target and someone who must never be attacked? No matter how sophisticated weapons become, it is essential that they are in line with the rules of war. International humanitarian law is all about making choices that preserve a minimum of human dignity in times of war and make sure that living together again is possible once the last bullet has been shot. Yet through the ages, people from around the world have tried to limit the brutality of war. It was this humanitarian spirit that led to the first Geneva Convention of 1864 and to the birth of modern international humanitarian law. Setting the basic limits on how wars can be fought, these universal laws of war protect those not fighting, as well as those no longer able to. To do this, a distinction must always be made between who or what may be attacked and who or what must be spared and protected. Most importantly, civilians can never be targeted. To do so is a war crime.
Good day, everyone. Now, I'm going to discuss the limits on the methods and means of war. I am Maria Myler Calsaren of BSc 1-7. Under the means of war, we have the weapons. Article 22 of the Regulations Annexed to the Hague Convention of 1907 provides that the right of belligerents to adopt means of injuring the enemy is not unlimited. While Article 23 of the same treaty, for instance, prohibits certain activities such as the employment of poison or poisoned weapons, killing or injuring enemy combatants, treacherously attacking those who have surrendered, or declaring that no quarter will be given. So this is the example of weapons during the war. And still under the weapons, we have the Declaration of the St. Purge of 1868. It states that the only legitimate object which states should be endeavored to accomplish during war is to weaken the military forces of the enemy, while the 1925 Geneva Protocol states that they banned the use of chemical and bacteriological weapons. And still under the weapons, we have the Bacteriological Weapons Convention of 1972. It states that party to it agreed never in any circumstances to develop, produce, stockpile, retain, or acquire bacteriological or biological weapons or toxins. We have also the General Assembly of the United Nations condemned their use in Resolution 1653 of 1961. It states that the value of this resolution is considerably weakened by the fact that of the nuclear weapon states, only the Soviet Union voted for it, and it is on the Shimoda v. Japan last 1983. Under the weapons, we also have the 1977 United Nations Convention on Environmental Modification. It requires states not to engage in military or any other hostile use of environment modification techniques having widespread, long-lasting, or severe effects. Also, it prohibits the employment of the methods or means of warfare that are intended or may be expected to cause widespread, long-term and severe damage to the natural environment. Next, we have the civilians. According to the customary international law, only members of the armed forces of a party to a conflict can take part of facilities, and the law has always attempted to draw a clear distinction between the lawful combatant who may be attacked and the civilian who may not. So this is the picture and the example of the civilians during war. Under the civilian, there is still the International Committee of the Red Cross in 1978. It requires parties to a conflict to distinguish at all times between the civilian population and combatants in order to spare civilian population and property. We also have the 1981 Conventional Weapons Convention. Specifically, it prohibits the use of mines, bobby traps, and other similar devices and incendiary weapons directed against the civilian population or used indiscriminately. Still under the weapon, we have the First Protocol of 1977. It states that it imposes very detailed target restraints in order to protect civilians. Rather, it states under the civilian. We also the means and methods during war of neutrals. The Fifth House Convention of 1907 declares that the territory of neutral powers is inviolable and that a neutral state has a duty to prevent a belligerent state from carrying the conflict to its territory. In naval warfare, the 13th House Convention of 1907 bans belligerents from conducting military operations in the territorial waters of a neutral state, and neutrals themselves have duties imposed on them not to assist the warships of belligerent states. So here's the example of neutrals. So as you can see, the flag of the America and the soldiers of the America having their neutrals. Next, we have the prohibited areas of combat. Military activities of any kind cannot be carried out on the Moon, Antarctica, or on the territory or territorial waters of neutral states. In addition, nuclear weapons or other weapons of mass destruction cannot be orbited around the Earth or placed on the seabed. So as you can see, this is the example of the area prohibited during the war. So no one can pass across this area because of the warning sign. So next, we moved on to the prisoners of war. The Third Geneva Convention of 1949 provides the basic framework of protection accorded to a prisoner of war. Rather, a prisoner of war is entitled to decent or humane treatment, to be evacuated from the combat zone, and to be granted rights and duties as similar as possible to those to the armed forces of the detaining power. So this is the example of the prisoners of war. Under the prisoner of war is the Article 52 of the Third Convention of 1949. It goes on to provide that the removal of mines or similar devices shall be considered dangerous labor. So, we have the occupation. World War II illustrated that civilians in occupied territory were largely unprotected by the laws of war. In consequence, the Fourth Geneva Convention of the 1949 provided detailed rules for their protection. So as you can see in this picture, the occupation during the war, the people occupied the entire land. still under the occupation, we have the Article 34 of the Fourth Convention. So, specifically, it prohibits the taking of hostages and reprisals against them or their property. While the Article 49 prohibits the transfer of protected persons out of occupied territory unless, in a given area, the security of a population or impressive military reasons so demand. So next, another means of war is the cessation of hostilities. Hostilities may be suspended pending negotiation between the parties. Also, it has been shown that the acquisition of territory as a result of war of aggression does not give title to that territory under international law. So as you can see in this picture, the President of the China and America shake hands because they had a deal or they negotiate with each other. Now, we moved on to the war crimes. It was commonly thought of as a violation of the laws of war committed by a combatant or even a civilian. So this is the example of a war crime. As you can see, there is a child and the soldier. So in my own opinion, the child has done a crime. So the soldier grab him and give him the proper consequence. That's all. All will be alright in time. Keep safe, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.